what diets can actually reverse disease and heal the human body. Actually, eating a plant-based diet, eating plants can save your life. It's an honor to introduce and to interview one of my main influences almost 20 years ago, Dr. John Mcdougal. So I welcome you all to the Frugal Health Podcast, and I hope you enjoy as much as I'm going to enjoy recording this right now.
Well, you ask the most profound question in the beginning, and that is, what is the diet that allows people to look, feel, and function their best? There has to be one. Boa constrictors have a diet. Koala bears have a diet. Deer have a diet. Dogs have a diet. I mean, there's got to be a diet for people, don't you think? That allows them to look, feel, and function their best. Just like if you were involved in race horses, you wanted to win some type of competitive derby, you'd figure out what would allow your horse to function its best, look its best, perform its best, etc. My challenge to everybody listening is there must be a diet that allows the human being to live, feel, function its best, enjoy the best health. It has to be there. So the question is, what is that diet? And it's the obligation, I feel, of everybody like yourself and consumers to go out and find that diet. Even if you're not involved in nutrition, you ought to be teaching your children and your siblings and your parents and your church group. And you ought to share with them this profound knowledge. What is the diet for human beings? I'll tell you what the diet for human beings is. The diet for human beings is a diet based on starch. And it's really important that this word is used. I don't know what kind of connotation it has in your language, but starch is a negative term in the English language. When people say starch, they think starches make you fat, or some other way that starch is sick of you. Starches are the basic diet of human beings. They are things like corn and beans and rice and potatoes and sweet potatoes and pastas and breads. These have been the traditional diet for human beings as long as we've existed on Earth, with few exceptions. Listen to me carefully, all large populations of people throughout all of verifiable human history have obtained the bulk of their calories from starch. All right, let's take a few examples. Like in the United States, the Native American lived on potatoes and corn later on. And the people from Central America, known as the Aztecs and the Mayans, they're known as the people of the corn. And if you go further south, say to the Andes, you find that people in the Andes live on potatoes, particularly those from Peru. That's the country of potatoes. That was the bulk of their food. If you travel a little further east to Africa, it's millet, later on corn, root vegetables. Look at the bread basket of the world in Iraq, Iran. We're talking about the bread basket of the world, not the pork chop basket of the world. We're talking about people living on starch. And then I think the most familiar example for people is they recognize that there were once 2 billion Asians, Cambodia, Thailand, Japan, China, who obtained the bulk of their calories from white rice. And they exhibited excellent health. I mean, it could have been better, but it was excellent. The exceptions being mostly when people became wealthy, the kings and queens of the past. I could take you back 3,500 years to the pharaohs buried in the pyramids in Egypt. And I can show you that their remains, their mummified remains, demonstrate definite evidence of them dying of American Western diseases, of atherosclerosis, of cancer, of obesity, of birth defects, all things that are closely tied to eating the Western diet. These were the pharaohs, the kings and queens. They lived on the meat that they fed the animals. They ate the animals, whereas the people who built the pyramids, they lived on wheat and barley. So, the exception has been wealthy people can afford to pass their calories through an animal before they eat it. And the consequence is, in the past, we've had obese people, the royalty, with gout in their feet, diabetes, etc. The difference now is we have a world where more than half the people can afford to and live like kings and queens. And their health represents it. That these are old diseases, been going on for thousands of years. It's just a number of people, because of mass transportation and telecommunication, because of harnessing of fossil fuels. We've developed a society where we can afford and do feed people the richest food known to humankind. And as a result, they're sick. The solution to the problem is to change them back to a starch-based diet. And that's what I've been doing for almost 50 years, is taking people and changing them back. I've taken care of over 12,000 people. I've taken care of over 6,000 people in a resort setting where I had complete control over them. So, I've been doing this a long time. As you well know, I've written many national best-selling books, and I've tried to share this message around the world, but people are resistant. It's hard for me to understand why and how, considering they do the extremes like this semaglutide campaign that's out there, taking these Ozempic and Wegovy shots. Good grief! I mean, people have to have gone to the extremes of nuttiness to do this, to control their weight. And of course, it's big money behind them, and that's why they're doing it. So I have actually a chart that compares the Mcdougal diet, which is, of course, what I teach, to taking these semaglutides, Ozempic, Wegovy, and et cetera. And what it turns out is that on our program in a year, we have attained a 23-pound weight loss on average. On Ozempic, they get a 25-pound weight loss, but they started with heavier people than us. We started with people of 180 pounds. They started with their studies with people of 233 pounds. So we have as good a weight loss at the end of a year as taking these drugs do. Plus, the means by which we do it is to make people healthier, not sicker. And that's the way these drugs work, is they work by making you so sick you can't eat. They're derived from the venom of a reptile, poisonous reptile, that lives in the Southwest United States. It's called a Gila monster. And they took this venom from the Gila monster and they took it back to the lab and they made it have prolonged effects. And it's just like getting bit by a reptile, poisonous reptile. You vomit, you're nauseated, you have diarrhea, you're weak. This is how these drugs work. The thing is they suppress all your desire in life, not just your desire for food. They talk about how the food noise stops. Well, your art noise stops, and your sexual life stops. Your interest in life in general stops, because these things make you sick. So, when I compare, the muscle loss, the bone loss, the additional diseases introduced by these drugs, when I compare it to something as simple as eating potatoes as a solution, it just makes no sense, except that I think we finally reached the nidus. We've reached the bottom. With these drugs, I think there's no place but up. We have the drugs, and then, of course, you have malabsorption created by surgery through bariatric surgeries. So you see how desperate people are. They're so desperate they would eat bean burritos. They would eat Szechuan.
Do you want to know more about fasting and how to live a healthful life, or even raw vegan recipes? Hygienic Fasting, Nature Surgery, and the book Natural Delicacies, Cooking Without a Stove, are available on Amazon, and Hygienic Fasting is actually available on print on demand, so you can receive it at your home. But I also have 8 books published, 6 online courses, retreats here in Brazil, and I attend patients online in private sessions. Unfortunately, all the other books and the online courses are still only available in Portuguese. But if you want my help as a nutritionist, or even if you want to come to a retreat in Brazil, just sign up. The contact will be on the website and in the links below. And if you like the content, please don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell button for notifications, comment, share the video. If you do all those, you are going to help the channel to grow. If we grow, you grow together, getting more vital, life-changing information and help yourself and others to make this a more healthy and a better planet for all of us.
Isn't that a Brazilian dish? Feijoada?
Feijoada,
Yeah, I
feijoada.
think I had that.
Yeah, it's cooked beans
right,
with a lot of meat inside, with a lot of pieces of the
Well, we don't
pork.
do it with meat. We do it with, we have a few Brazilian recipes in our recipe books.
Oh,
Anyway,
nice.
I published 3 scientific papers on our work. They're uncontested because they tell you the truth. They tell you what happens. We have 7-day study of 1,700 people. 1,700 people. We have a 7-day report on them, and they lose an average of 3.1 pounds, eating as much as they want, as often as they want. They drop their cholesterol about 22 milligrams per deciliter, which is about, it's about 3/4 of an international unit. They get off their blood pressure pills and diabetic pills. They're either able to reduce or stop the medication in nearly 90% of the cases in 7 days. And the blood pressures become normal, blood sugars become normal quite often, and often during the 7 days. We get nearly 90% of people off their drugs just by changing their, in 7 days. And then we have 1-year results on our program, which show they cause somewhere between a 20 and 25 pound weight loss at the end of a year with a 20-point drop in cholesterol. Same reduction in medications. We have, 3 papers done by different people, all different researchers. Hey, you know what? What I'm telling you is true.
People cannot think that it's true because it's so simple, it's so easy as eating cheap food, peasant food, like they cannot grasp it. It's funny, here in Brazil, actually, there's a lot of plant-based doctors and nutritionists and other health specialties, professionals, but still, I am seen as the radical because, for sure, I'm a raw fooder for almost 2 decades, but still, I just talk about whole foods. A lot of these plant-based doctors here, they're recommending bread and industrialized stuff, so why don't use just whole foods? I don't get it, yeah, but even inside of our own community of plant-based, health professionals, people cannot, look at the most simple fare and focus on what should actually is. And it's, I imagine what I have seen through these almost 50 years of clinical practice. So what would be the most amazing results you have seen of reversal of, what could you say that you saw as a miracle of somebody with advanced chronic disease being reversed by following a Mcdougal diet and program?
Well, you name it, we fixed it. Just amazing number of problems. And if you'd like to read some stories, I told you about the research. The research is science. If you want to read some stories of people, you can go to my website and read under Star Mcdougallers. There are people with severe heart disease, massive obesity, horrible diabetes on all kinds of medications. Pretty much everything caused by a diet. Dietary diseases, when you fix the diet, they're cured. Plain and simple. It's just like, when people smoke cigarettes and they cough and wheeze, if you quit the tobacco, they're cured. So you identify the rich foods. Rich foods fall into 2 categories, and I call them food poisons. like tobacco is the poison for smokers, and alcohol is the poison for drunks. Okay, the two categories of food poison are animal foods. That means their body parts and their secretions, and oil. You have to give up the olive oil, corn oil, safflower oil, et cetera. And when I tell people this, Eduardo, you know, they look at me and they go, well, I have nothing to eat. That's all I eat is oil and animals. And then you have to open the world to starch to them. And I think the best way that I do this is I ask them to recall their own family histories. And it wasn't that long ago that grandma and grandpa, certainly great grandma and grandpa, lived on a diet of beans and rice and other starches. It's only been the last generation that Brazil has changed, maybe the last 40, 50 years.
Sure.
So you can recall, if you ask your people, do you remember when you went over to grandma and grandpa's house for dinner on Sunday, what she had? Okay, it wasn't chicken or beef, you know, except if you were from a rich Brazilian family. It was, you know, it was beans and rice and corn, and, you know, that's what they fed was starch. But that's been demonized. The word starch has been demonized. So
I grew
anyway,
up. I grew up on a terrible diet, right? But my dad was an immigrant from Italy. His parents actually were immigrants from Italy on the Second World War, right? So he was born in a farm. He was really, really poor. He came to Rio de Janeiro to work in his early, at 20 years of age. And then, but he talked about his past, although he felt like he needed meat and things like that. I was like always asking him, but Dad, how much meat would you have? And he said, like, we killed a pork for a whole family of 15 people for a month because there was no grains to fed then, you know, so it was not easy. So he said that he was always like on top of trees, eating fruits and eating starch on the end of the day, like beans, rice, beans, potatoes, you know, they had some milk as well once in a while, but it was like really low animal protein, only whole foods. And they didn't even had electric lights. So in terms of chronobiology, chrononutrition, he had a terrible, a perfect metabolic programming all his childhood. He started seeing electric lights after 20 years of age. So in terms of lifestyle medicine, his lifestyle couldn't, it was almost perfect, I could say. And he was impressive, you know, like his bone structure was like twice as big as mine. He could smoke and drink, you know, do a lot of bad stuff. And he didn't got sick, although he died of cancer 6 years ago. He just realized he got cancer like 1 month before dying. And in his last days of cancer, he was like, "You're right, help me out." But it was like last week he got metastases in like 4 organs. So, you know, he already went to the hospital, took some drugs, and they fed him lasagna with like gelatin and a lot of bad stuff. He got there walking and talking, and after 1 day he got out. He asked my mom to take him out because he was going to die there, because he thought they were killing him. And, you know, like, so even I, after 10 years of living a natural hygiene lifestyle, couldn't save my dad. I talked to him, but, you know, like, he didn't listen until, you know, it was too advanced. So it's sad, but, you know.
Eduardo, one of the things we can all agree on is everybody dies.
Yeah, for sure.
You just want to prolong it, an enjoyable, useful life as long as you can. So I don't think I would feel in any way discouraged about not helping your grandpa. You know, he had a good life. You know, he presented it at the end of his life, and, you know, like I say, people die. So, you know, do you want to talk about cooked food versus raw food? Because I got the hint that you like raw food best. And I hate to tell you that I'm a cooked food guy.
No,
So,
like, first of all, my admiration for your work, and I'm open to all views. I'm not just closed to mine. But for sure, I have my own view after living almost 20 years of primarily fruits and vegetables and a plant-based diet. So for sure, like, I have 350 fruit trees on my yard. So like, I love fruit. I have to say that. I have to. But like, I always admire and respect. So I'm not here to, compete or, debate.
Let me explain to you.
But if you want to talk about it, I'm open, like.
I just want you to know that the problem is to get people to do this. And if you introduce unfamiliar, difficult rules, it's hard. The first thing I would say is that a raw diet is not going to have much starch. You can't eat raw grains, or
Yeah,
you can eat raw potato.
You can sprout chickpeas, you can sprout lentils, you can sprout quinoa, like wheat. There's a lot of grains that you can actually sprout and use it. Or even if you people in the living food community here in Brazil, they have what they call amornar. It's like heating up just a little bit. If you heat up quinoa like for 3 minutes, I don't do it, but like you can. If you heat quinoa for like 3 minutes after sprouting it's the same texture and taste as cooked. So like you can reduce the damage caused by the Maillard reaction end products and the loss of micronutrients. It's just my humble opinion.
Well, Eduardo, it's just that my goal, in addition to saving people, is saving the planet. And a raw food approach is going to be difficult, to say the least. Assuming that you can't really, the most efficient way to deal with starch is to cook them. And we need some efficiency. If you're going to talk about traditional raw foods, which is fruit and nuts and seeds and their derivatives, the butters and so on, you can't produce enough of nuts and fruits to supply the population of this planet. You can never even come close. So, you're unable to deal with something that I have set out as a goal, which is to get people to change. And they can switch to a diet of rice or corn or potatoes or wheat. And we could feed the whole world on that kind of diet. The other thing is it's a little more difficult for people to adjust to raw food as opposed to what they're used to. Like your grandpa, he lived on pastas, I would imagine, cooked. And most of the people around you in Brazil, up until recently, ate a diet of black beans and rice and, a few vegetables and so on. But it's been cooked food. The human diet is a cooked food diet. I believe that. And that has been really important for brain development, to get enough calories. May have happened more than 1 million years ago, but we started being starch eaters, and that's how we developed the big brains that we have. You need that energy. You got to have that energy, and it comes from starch to grow the brain.
My point of view is that we have to help people out, and a plant-based diet for sure is the best way. For sure, you have different ways to approach a plant-based diet, as raw foods, as like primarily fruits and emphasis on fruits and vegetables or starch. But still, like, you have to agree, there's a lot of research on AGEs, advanced glycation end products, because most people don't know it at home, right? So I'm translating to them. AGEs causing methylglycosal, for example, involved in brain degeneration when in high levels on the blood. For sure, starch causes less AGEs formation than meat or animal products in general, but still, and all these phytonutrients that, happens to be labile, thermolabile, oxygen labile, and photolabile are more.
Eduardo, you're kind of losing me in the details. I'm just a country doctor,
you know what I'm talking. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, I know what you're talking about. But the point I'm trying to make is you need to make this simple. You need to convey it simple. You need to provide it simple. You can't make it into all kinds of things that I don't even understand.
For
You
sure.
know,
For sure. For sure.
the general population needs to understand that they have porridge for breakfast or pancakes. And they need to understand that for lunch and dinner, they have pasta and marinara sauce, you know, beans and rice, you know, mushu vegetables and over rice and all kinds of delicious sweet potato and potato dishes that people can relate to, and they don't need to know any of the details, you know, such as the end products of metabolism and so on.
Yeah.
But you know, that's been kind of my approach, is because, like I say, I'm just a general doctor.
I lecture a lot to the Adventist church here in Brazil because I have a book called The Diet of Eden, and I talk a lot about diet of Eden, and I produce a lot of content eating fruits and vegetables and incentivizing people at least to consume like the 5 portions of fruits and vegetables that, you know, the American campaign came out like 20, 30, 40 years ago suggesting that. So I advocate a lot for higher plant consumption and fruit and vegetable consumption. So in Adventist church, I cannot talk about Darwin or evolutionism, right? So I usually talk, I say to them or to people that believe in evolutionism, like Darwin theories, that we are talking about the same thing. We want a better health for the planet, with better health for human beings, and, you know, more peace, more health, more love. So even if you take a look from the theological perspective or the Darwinian perspective, we're still talking about the same thing. If you take a look, you know, we were primates, you know, so I don't think we should emphasize the differences, but I think we should emphasize the similarities. So even if we're talking about starch or fruit, you know, like it's still pretty much the same idea. Drop out the animal products or reduce like blue zones, increase whole food, take out the oils, you know, like, and focus on other parts of lifestyle medicine as well. But I love your phrase, it's the food. And for sure, I agree completely. It's the food that is making them sick. So like, you know, I agree completely what you're talking about. People cannot even change.
I just, you know, I need to make it as easy as I can for people.
I agree.
Eduardo, I mean, I've built 2 food companies, and one of them is still a big seller. We are in over 6,000 stores in the United States, called Dr. Mcdougal's Right Foods. And that's so, you know, we have about 30 different items on the supermarket shelves to make it easy for people. You know, that's the fast food restaurants have captured them. You know, assuming that we can't make a fast food Mcdougal restaurant, you know, that McDonald's is going to win out. You know, we have to do whatever we can to get the food to people, and making it a simple message is what I like to do. I tell people that they need to find one thing they like for breakfast. Again, this is starch. And they need to find 2 or 3 or 4 things they like for dinner, and just repeat them over and over again. We have we have over 4,000 recipes published, and we're on Instagram and Facebook. And so there are probably tens of thousands of recipes out there that follow our program. But again, it's, you know, the other problem that you probably have to deal with is getting people off medication. How do you do that?
If they adopt a plant-based diet, and a healthy lifestyle, like medication needs will drop like crazy, because these bioactive compounds.
Don't you have some medical legal issues in Brazil?
Yeah, for sure,
as a non-doctor?
For sure. You need medical supervision to take people out of meds. But even their own medical doctors will see like cholesterol dropping, blood pressure dropping, and they will suggest, you know, like, there's no need anymore.
Well, you'd hope so. You'd hope their own medical doctors would be supportive. But, you know, sad to say, medical doctors know virtually nothing about human nutrition, much less what you do when you change somebody's diet, what you do with their blood pressure pills and their diabetic medication and so on. We don't receive that kind of training. So, you know, you probably know as much, or probably definitely more than most medical doctors do about the topic. I have no doubt you know more. So, you
I'm
know,
pretty sure.
that's a problem. You know, as I say, we reduce or stop 90% of the medications in people. So that takes a little bit of judgment, and it takes a familiarity with the drugs, which of course you get in medical school. So I hope you have a doctor working with you to help your patients, or at least encourage them to see their own local doctor and reduce the medications. They might give them some guidelines too, you know, as to, because they don't know, Eduardo, they just have no idea. Some guidelines as to how you stop insulin, for example, or how you stop blood pressure pills, so you can do it safely and not get the patient in trouble. Anyway, there's a little bit of thought that goes into my practice, not much, a little bit.
Sure, you're completely right. You're completely right. So most people.
So what I do is I tell people, you know, think about your heritage. Like if you're Asian, you may want to go to rice dishes. If you're Brazilian, you may want to go to black beans and whatever. You have a lot of potatoes down there too. So you want to go with what you're familiar with. And the other thing I do that may shock you a little bit, but again, it's to get people to do it. Okay, I want them to make the change because it's the food that keeps them sick, is I add a little salt and a little sugar to the service of the food. And the reason is because people love salt and sugar. And, you know, I'm not trying to make everybody perfect. I just want to get them well. And so the palatability of the diet is greatly enhanced by adding a little salt and sugar to the surface of the food, not while cooking. Anyway, use familiar spices, pick things that you like already, get yourself teamed up with a medical doctor who has the attitude that sick people take drugs, healthy people don't. So you need to find that kind of doctor that will reduce your patient's medications. So, yeah, but you know, as far as wonderful, miraculous cures, Eduardo, I tell you, every day, I'm not exaggerating, every day when I see patients, which may be 8 or 12 a day, I see miracles that any doctor would be thrilled to see in their practice. People getting off bags full of drugs. You know, people, chest pain stops. You know, amazing stuff, getting off 120 units of insulin. You know, in fact, I would have to say, when somebody's involved in this, either as a patient or a healthcare provider, you will be not disappointed. You'll be overwhelmed by the positive benefits that take place when people make a change from animal foods and oils to starches, vegetables, and fruits. And by the way, that's how simple the message is that I give, is the Mcdougal diet can be described in 2 sentences. It's a starch-based diet with fruits and vegetables, and the Mcdougal diet does not contain free oils or animals. That's it. Pretty simple. You don't have to be a doctor or a scientist to figure that out. And anyway, you know, people get it, and they always get better from dietary diseases, just like smokers always get better when they quit. Drunks always get better when they quit. People getting food poisoning always get better when they quit. It's pretty simple.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. I have seen many things as well, and you know, I'm glad to be able to help with, you know, lifestyle medicine, like, you know, teaching my patients. And what I know, we talk a lot about diet, and people think, you know, it's boring. But what else? What's your view on fasting, for example? I know True North.
Well, yeah, True North is right down the street from us, or at least they were for many years. Alan Goldhammer and the group have been longtime friends, 40 years.
Nice.
You know, let me tell you one thing for sure, is after you finish a week or 2 weeks of water only, you love rice and potatoes. You know, they taste like the best food you ever had. So the fasting is a good initiation into the benefits, because it's the ultimate elimination diet. No cholesterol, no fat, no salt. It's just water. So it's the ultimate elimination diet, and so you're most likely to pick up most problems. However, you have the problem of refeeding. Unless you refeed them a starch-based diet with fruits and vegetables, they go back to the same sickness. So I send a few people to True North, maybe yearly, maybe one or two, but most of the time, it's all they need is the food, and then get well. It just happens. How fast does it happen? Well, I tell people within 4 to 7 days. Okay, within 4 to 7 days, they'll already see benefits. It takes about 4 to 7 days to clear the ball out of its remnants of rich Western food. So that's when you start to see benefits. And then they continue up until about 4 months. And I think 4 months, if you haven't healed by whatever method you're on, you should probably look for somebody else to follow, because most healing takes place in 4 months. So I tell people, if the Mcdougal diet has not solved your health problems, which, occasionally it doesn't, then go listen to somebody else. I've given you my best shot. That's all I know. Walk around a little bit, get a little sunshine, eat potatoes. That's all I know. And take a bunch of drugs too.
So people are always curious, how is your lifestyle? What do you do and eat in a day? For example, just an example, so for sure, it doesn't need to be
For me, well, Mary and I'm 77 years old, and Mary is little than I am. And so we have no children anymore, but we do have a grandson that lives with us. And we all eat the same way. We eat starches, vegetables, and fruits. And for example, every morning, Eduardo, I cook oatmeal for Mary and I. And then for lunch and dinner, often we'll have leftovers, or, lunch and dinner are basically the same. So, we'll have things like bean burritos one night and a rice and tofu dish another night. And like last night, we had actually beans and chips. That's all I had last night for dinner, beans and chips. It was really good. You need a little fruit and vegetable in there, but it was okay for a simple fast dinner. Just plain old, I think they're cranberry beans Mary cooked last night. Just plain old brown beans, and boil them up in a slow cooker and put a little seasoning in them, a little salt, maybe. No, I don't think we put any salt in the beans. We put seasoning in them though. And then just eat, and it works out just fine. But we don't have, there are not a lot of recipes that vary in our family. They're basically the same thing over and over and over and over again. And we don't eat tofu. We don't eat fake foods. We have a little bit of tofu, just because it's a natural soy product. But we don't have any Boca burgers or soy hot dogs or soy cheeses or anything like that. That stuff is toxic.
I completely agree. Any emphasis on exercise, chronobiology, chrononutrition? Do you pay attention to any of those? And sunshine?
Well, I don't. The chronobiology and chrononutrition are new terms for me. Like I say, I'm just a simple doctor. I don't know what those are. Anyway, you need a little sunshine based on your skin color. Darker skinned people need more sunshine. You need to go for a walk without hurting yourself. The problem with exercise is too often people will bike. They'll get hit by cars. Or they'll go swimming. They'll go windsurfing with sharks, which I used to do up until recently. That's dangerous.
I'm way more white than I look, but I spend so much time on the sun playing tennis and do gardening, planting my fruit trees. So and because of all these beta carotene, I look a little bit more tan than I normally should. But like chronobiology in terms of like I try to have dinner really early in the day, like before 6 p.m. I try to avoid electric lights after 6 p.m., like really dim light if I use it, like I try to focus on other aspects
So
of.
you're kind of an all-around man, right? A Renaissance man. You deal with a whole bunch of different things. I'm afraid I'm just going to have to stay with the it's the food. I think I'm just going to have to stick there. Let people figure out about sunshine and walking by themselves. But
sure.
that's good. I hope you find some benefits from the effort you put into it, because it sounds like people must get very much involved in what you're doing.
Yeah. I'm happy for be able to help reach out for millions of people here, like, more for sure, because there's the followers, but there's also, always the message spreading. So some videos have more than 1 million views. So, but still, so what would you recommend? What tips would you give for people at home to start for making the change?
Well, I think the best thing for people who really want to solve their problems is to sign up for our telemedicine program. If you're real serious about getting your health back, we run a 12-day intensive educational telemedicine program where we take care of people in Brazil, in China, in Russia, all over the world. And we have a medical doctor, well-trained in diet therapy, that sees them and takes them off their medications when appropriate. And then we have 2 support staff that work all day long with each participant. And we have, we probably know Doug Lyle and Jeff Novick, and they're part of our team. And we have education and cooking. Chef AJ does some cooking for us. But we have people signed up all over the world. We run the programs every month or 2. That would be the best thing to do. The other next best thing to do would be to go to YouTube and watch the lectures I give. I pretty much put everything I know on YouTube. And then the other thing is to visit our website. Not only are there lots of articles I've written, and I guess you spent some time there, and not only are there many articles I've written, but there's also a 12-day program. No gimmicks. It tells you exactly what to do for 12 days, free. So, that's what I kind of line myself up to decide that you're going to do it. Now, that's the important thing. The important thing is to say, I'm going to change. Because if you're not ready to change, you won't. And if you come to the decision you want to be different, you want your health back, then I think the resources are available for you, either free on my website and YouTube, or you come, let me take care of you. Yeah, you get to stay in your home in Brazil, and I'll come into your home like this. In an amazing world, we can talk like this.
Yes.
Anyway,
technology.
That's what I do.
Technology helps.
This is, it's nice to get involved with groups, but see, we develop our own groups in our program. We develop pods of people who interact with each other, not only during the program, but for a lifetime afterwards. They have meetings once a week and talk about how they're doing and the progress they've made or the difficulties they're having. These are done without our staff being present. They're just participants. So that helps a lot. And again, the people all over the world who do this. So, one of the criteria, I guess, you have to be able to speak English, because that's all we know. It's English, pretty much.
One last question, and that is probably controversial, is that I agree with you. Let me tell you this first. I agree with you. I have, for example, the articles in your website for vitamin D supplementation, and yeah, I'm in favor of like less supplements, more whole foods, more attention to lifestyle. Because, for example, there's now a scientific article suggesting that if you are sleep deprived, you damage your nutrient absorption, for example. So I completely agree. And what's your take on supplements, even more supplements for vegans?
They're not just a waste of money. They're a serious health hazard. So I don't think you should be taking any supplements. The only unless you have some dietary disease like scurvy, which you don't, you shouldn't be taking supplements. We do recommend B12 as a supplement that people take when they follow our program. The risk of B12 deficiency is almost non-existent, but we don't want to hurt anybody, so we tell them B12. But we take people off all their supplements. Boom, day one. Because they cause nutritional imbalances, that's the problem. Because they're not just inert. What happens when you flood the system with one particular nutrient, an isolated concentrated nutrient, you flood the system and you displace all the other functional nutrients. So like, for example, you have a carotenoid receptor inside your cell where beta carotene attaches. But there are also 49 other carotenoids that need to attach to that same receptor. So if you flood the receptor with beta carotene, the other 49 carotenoids don't get to do their job. So these supplements are hazardous, dangerous. You take vitamin D, for example. If you take over 1,000 international units, you increase your risk of falls and fractures. Falls and fractures when you take vitamin D. Heart attacks, vitamin E, beta carotene, you increase your risk of all kinds of cancers. Why would you want to take this garbage? Waste your money. It's the food. It's the food. There's no profit in it, but it's still the food. That's the problem. You see, you get a bunch of health food gurus on there who are giving a positive message about health, plants, et cetera, et cetera. And then they got a back room of supplements they're selling you. And they know better. Anyway, I'm not mentioning any names, but I could.
I know the controversials inside but like yeah, for sure, calcifying arteries and causing heart disease. I agree completely. It's the food and lifestyle. It's like I tell my patients, I look at my plants here in my garden. I plant like mangoes, jackfruits, bananas, a lot of things. Apples don't grow here, they die. Figs, they somewhat grow, they stay alive, but they don't produce as much. But tropical fruits, they grow like crazy. So it's like the biological needs. For sure, we're not plants, but we still had biological needs, like these proportions of micronutrients, so if we don't pay attention to all these biological needs, the organisms cannot thrive. So you cannot substitute a biological need for a pill. It doesn't work. Only plants synthesize nutrients. So I completely agree. So how can they find you? And one last, message to everybody. One last motivational message.
Well, we're heavily present on the internet. You put in Mcdougal, you probably get my name first up, but you might have to put in John Mcdougal or diet and Mcdougal. But we're every place. We've been at this well, I did my first website in 2002, so 22 years ago. Let's see, 42 years. 2002, that's 42 years ago. Oh, that's when I did my first website. So we've been on the internet for a long time. As far as a motivational message is, well, you got to, first of all, you have to understand there's an option, and it's a real option. And it sounds so simple, you can hardly believe it's true. But you need to educate yourself about the fact that you don't have to stay sick. You don't have to stay overweight if it's a dietary disease, which 90% of the illnesses are. So once you get that firmly in your mind, then you put every effort you can into changing. And I told you about our 12-day telemedicine program. That's really a big jump start. But I would clean out the refrigerator. I'd get it well stocked. I'd get some people around you, spouse, relatives, friends, and so on, that would be able to work with you on this, because doing it together is helpful. And just pick things you like. Don't make a big deal out of this. If you want to eat potatoes and water for the next 5 years, it's fine. The foods are complete, is what, the food industry has frightened you away with the idea that you have to mix and match things to get all the nutrients. Excuse me. Foods are complete. You know, panda bears live on bamboo shoots. Koala bears live on eucalyptus trees. You know, horses live on grasses and grains. The food is complete. And so it is for people. You don't have to mix and match or make a lot of variety. You know, a starch along with some fruits and vegetables will do it for you. And add a little B12 later on.
I learned
It's really easy.
I learned a lot from you about William Rose and his research on amino acids and Hindhead living on potatoes. You know, like I got a lot of information back then from you, and I completely
All right.
I completely admire your work. I think you are visionary. It's a pleasure to also say thanks in person for writing so much good scientific information for the public, because it helped me out back then as well. I even used some quotes and some, some scientific papers that you put in your newsletters on my lectures. So it's a pleasure to interview you, a pleasure to get to know you. Hope to get to know you one day in person and watch some lectures and have some, eat some food, some plant-based whole food. And congratulations for all your work. And I hope this message and this video reaches.
Well, thank you, Eduardo. We have a world to save.
Yeah, for sure.
And
and that doesn't, and that they don't understand that they need to be saved and what is the solution, but we still have a world to save, for sure.
And so what I can say is your efforts are greatly appreciated to spread the good news. So go get them. You can have all of South America. How's that?
I'll be on it until I'm 120 and die of old age. Thanks a lot.
You got a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
we have a lot of work to do. So, all right. Well, nice to talk to you.
Being healthy is easier to put the work done. So it's all I need. Be healthy. So I know the way.
All right.
See you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Nice to talk to you. Bye-bye.
Nice. Did you like the podcast? What other subjects would you want to view here? Do you want to know more about? Please comment below. Don't forget to share the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to help our work and help yourself, 2 of my 10 books are already translated and published in English on Amazon. And Hygienic Fasting Nature Surgery is actually available print on demand also. And Natural Delicacies Cooking Without a Stove, it's on Kindle. So if you want my help, the link below for the website and for the WhatsApp contact, you can get a consultation, retreats, online courses, and read all the books. It's life-changing information for the most updated lifestyle information out there in the planet. Hope I can help, and don't forget to click these videos to know more.